two, three. Listen.
Welcome to the Shoot the Shiitake podcast with me, Father Leo Padalinghug, a Catholic priest on a mission to bring people of all different backgrounds together to learn, to love, and accept one another. Even if we disagree, we got to be willing to listen to each other as God does with us and as God wants us to do with each other. And this podcast isn't about the deep technical things of faith and spirituality, but rather about how to make these things realistic and practical in our life simply by listening to each other. And this week we have the special pleasure of listening to King Randall, founder of X for Boys. He's a young man, an entrepreneur who's doing so much to help basically disenfranchised young black boys get involved in their life and in their own formation by teaching them the basics of life skills. It's going to be fascinating. And if you want to support our podcast, just simply go to the website platinggrace.com, click on the Academy where you can become a member and support us by joining one of those tiered memberships. And as a member, you'll get access to unique content, an online community, and special perks. But for now, let's welcome our special guest, King Randall, as I dive into a deep dish discussion and we shoot the shiitake. And welcome back to Shoot the Shiitake for my deep dish discussion. And I'm really pleased to have King Randall with me, the X for Boys. Is that right? I mean, give me the exact title of the program because I just want to call them X-Men, to be honest with you.
Yes, sir. Oh, it's called the X for Boys. Yes, sir.
And why? Tell me about that. And then we're going to get a little bit into your background. But what exactly is the X?
So our motto is let us make man. And for boys, they don't know how to be men until they come into the X for Boys. And the letter X means unknown. So it's kind of like the unknown for boys. You're learning how to be a man. And our motto is let us make man.
Okay. This sounds scriptural.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Tell me about that. I kind of like the scriptures.
Oh, yeah. So in my opinion, everybody, I try not to do a little spin off of your own, version of the scripture, but I firmly, said that I believe that let us make man implies to me that I should be assisting God with making men. So that's why I worked so hard in the community with young men and young boys, teaching them, how to be men, how to protect their women and children, how to go and make money, how to fend for themselves, and how to be self-sufficient.
I honestly thought that the X was because you studied Greek and you knew that that was the first letter for Christo and that letter X. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Sure, let me know.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you're doing. Now, tell me a little bit about you. I think I'm fascinated the fact that you had some culinary background. You're a pretty notable chef and obviously as a culinary student. Tell me about that, and then we're going to jump into why you got this started.
Yes, sir. Well, I was a culinary student all through high school. I actually had a culinary program while I was in high school. I was the captain of the culinary business management team, and I was on the culinary team the year before that. And I was a Georgia Restaurant Association Pro Star Student of the Year, the first one to ever win that award. And I went to Albany Technical College and I graduated there with an associate's in culinary arts. So I did cooking for a while, and then I went to the Marine Corps. And I did that for 4 years. And now I am working with children full time.
Tell me, what exactly does that mean, working with children? Is it the X for Boys program, or is it, because you're doing a whole bunch of other things. I love the fact that you're called a community shifter.
Yes, sir.
I want to hear about that. And by the way, I said shift people, okay? Just so you know. But go ahead.
Yes, sir. Well, yes, sir. I call myself a community shifter, not a community activist, because I want to make things move in our community. So I call myself a community shifter. But the things that I do with the X for Boys, I teach young men how to do the skilled trades, such as changing oil, changing brakes, basically automotive repair. I'm doing home construction, such as changing toilets, changing ceiling fans, painting, carpentry, you name it. I try to make sure the boys learn how to do those things that granddad used to know how to do and things that you could go and do for yourself. So that's kind of what I've been doing right now. I do boarding. I house boys at my home with me and my wife and my child. I house 6 at a time. And so what we do every day is we go and find something to get into. I teach them things. They have opportunities to make money. And also this is getting them out of their conditions as well at home, because I do believe children go through, I call it holy hell at home. They go through a lot. And so I try to make sure that they have a different environment where they're able to learn, able to do things differently, and able to have a different outlook on life.
King, you sound like an absolute maniac. You, in a good way, because who just brings these boys into their home? I mean, like, your wife must be a saint.
Yes, sir. She cooks for them. She fusses at them for maybe not cleaning up their areas or cleaning up their bathroom and things like that. But she loves it. She enjoys being around them. Sometimes she fusses at me, for giving them a little bit too much time and things like that. But we make it work. She enjoys it. She does, and I enjoy it myself. I was the only child on my mom's side, and I've always wanted a big family. And people, get upset when I say that I want like 9 children. And I'm just like, I want so many grandkids. I don't even want to know all their names. I just want so many. So that's where I want to be. I want a very big family. I have a very small family. So for me, I just want to change that and just make it gigantic.
Okay, you sound like a maniac who I want to cook for. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Yes,
And
sir.
we're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna get to Albany, Georgia, and I'm gonna cook for you, your wife, and these boys. But I want to know about your background. What
Yes, sir.
inspired you to do all of this? Because you seem like such a genuine person, kind of disgustingly nice, to be honest with you. I mean, like, how do you get like this? Because I know there'll be a lot of people listening and say, how do I make a man like this?
Yeah,
Because
well,
we need more of you.
yes, sir. Well, my boys wouldn't say I'm so nice. I have to get, really rowdy with them sometimes, just depending on what they do and how upset they probably make me. But for the most part, I guess since I can get a little spiritual here, I can talk about why I do what I do.
You can get
I've
spiritual anytime you want. I don't, even if I was an atheist, you still
Yes,
should
sir.
have the freedom to just get spiritual.
Right, yes, sir. So I've known my purpose my whole life. Ever since I was about 2 years old. And a philosopher that I know always says that a child they'll either show you or tell you what their purpose is for being here on earth by the time they turn 7 years old. So I was fortunate enough to have my grandmother who was with me this particular day. And usually when you are young, maybe 3 years old, you don't remember anything unless it's really significant. A really significant event has to happen, such as you going to Disney World or something like that, for you to even remember anything from that far. The only two things that I remember from being 2 years old was my aunt. She passed away. She was killed in Detroit when I was about two. I was 2 years old, and the only thing I remember is driving there, seeing the snow, and being at the funeral. That's all I remember because I had never been on a trip like that, and we drove 18 hours, so I'd never seen snow before. That's all I remember from that trip. And the second thing that I remember was one day my grandmother came to pick me up from daycare. And I started talking pretty early. Just Baby King, he does the same thing. He talks now. He's not even 2 yet. He talks really well, knows all his ABCs, numbers, you name it. And so I was talking early, and I was 2, and I remember this day vividly. I remember the car we were riding in. I remember the color car seat. I had a gray car seat, had this little thing in the middle I used to play with. And we were riding down the road. I remember the stop sign. We stopped at everything. And when she stopped at the stop sign, I asked her, I said, Grandma, do you know how it is to have butterflies in your stomach, like something's about to happen? And she said, yeah, I know how that is. And I told her that I was here to finish what Dr. King started. And so this particular day, my grandmother was like, and my grandmother's she's an apostle. She preaches. She's a minister. She's been a minister like her whole life. So for her, this was like, what? Like, what do you know about Dr. King or anything? And from that conversation, I remember nothing else. And so growing up, my grandmother never let me forget what I said that day. Going through middle school, high school, you name it. She always, reminded me, hey, don't forget you're here to finish what Dr. King started. Don't forget what you're here to do. I didn't tell you this purpose. God told you this purpose, and you told me, so I'm not going to let you forget. So this whole time, I going through middle school, getting that rebellious stage. Stop telling me about that, Grandma. We probably watched a Dr.
How
King video or
rebellious
something.
were you? I mean,
Um,
because to be honest with you, you seem so nice. You've been calling me sir, feeling old here, but you mean, how rebellious were you?
Every time she would tell me about this, I, throw it off. I'm just like, Grandma, we probably watched a Dr. King video or something that day. Just leave me alone about it. We even got into a very big argument, even when I was in high school, to the point where because I stayed with my grandmother in high school because my mom got married and moved to Atlanta, and I didn't want to leave where I was living because I was, with my wife at the time, and I was doing dual enrollment. I was taking college classes while I was in high school.
How old
So
were you then?
I was 16.
You were
And so
married? At
Oh,
16? Oh,
no.
no.
I was saying I was with my wife. Yeah, I was with my
Oh,
wife. Yeah, we've been together since 10th grade.
oh, okay. So she was your girlfriend at the
Yeah,
time.
she was my girlfriend
Okay.
at the time,
Like,
and I didn't want to
like those
leave.
laws in Georgia sure have changed a little bit. Okay.
Yeah,
So
well, you have to get parents'
you
permission to get married at 17, but yeah,
okay. So you got married at 17.
I got married at 18. I got married as soon as I graduated. Yeah, yes, sir.
Wow.
But yeah, so we had a very big argument one time when I was 16. She was about to put me out the house because we literally got in a huge heated argument about this purpose. I'm just like, could you please leave me alone about this? Like, it was very bad. My mom called, she was crying, please stop screaming. It was really bad. And so I went to the Marine Corps. My grandma sent me like a lot of letters, and stuff like that. And she wrote the same thing. I don't care what you're doing now. I don't care about you going to culinary school, none of that. You are here to finish what Dr. King started. Never let me forget. So I finally gave in when I turned about 18 or 19. I was living in Atlanta with my mom. I was still in the Marine Corps, and I came home. And at this time, I was like, well, let me see what Dr. King was supposed to have not finished. Like, what was he about to start or something? So I decided to do lots of research. I dug deep into Dr. King. I found lots of FBI files, read all the books that he wrote, just everything, watching old documentaries, because I'm just trying to put two and two together. Like, what was he supposed to be doing? I'm not getting it. So I went to his memorial in Atlanta, and in the memorial, in the museum, they have a room where the carriage that carried his casket through the city is in. And so the carriage is in there, and they have in that room, they have newspaper articles, headlines from all over the United States and the world from his funeral. And I was walking through and I was looking at each and every newspaper article. And one stuck out to me from the Pittsburgh Courier. It's on my wife's birthday of 1968. And it said, "Will a new king emerge?" That was the headline. And so if you look at all of my social media handles, all of them say a new emerging king.
New emerging king. Yeah.
Yep. Those are all of my social media handles.
And so it is you're just kind of deeper understanding of King the reason why you start to believe now that what you said allegedly when you were 2 years old,
yep.
that you are on a path. I mean, do you believe in reincarnation? Is that what you're talking about here, or is this just?
I wouldn't say reincarnation. I
good,
think
because that's kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think it's more of I know why I'm here. And one of the biggest things that I found out, in my opinion, is a few mistakes that our civil rights leaders made is they didn't train any replacements. And they never trained any like children growing up with them. They didn't train any like any major groups of young men or children with them at all.
You're right.
So I was like, what if Dr. King had trained up so many children, trained up so many young men, that you could have killed Dr. King, but you couldn't really kill Dr. King because he taught
I mean,
so
it's
many.
kind of like what Jesus did with apostles. I mean, clearly he was giving them formation. And this is a word that I kind of want to focus on because a lot of people don't understand it. I don't even know if you understand it. But what I see you doing is you're providing formation. You're not teaching them life skills only, because honestly, anybody could learn that from YouTube.
Right.
You're actually giving them something that is being a part of their humanity. It's forming them. And the reason I say that is because before I became a priest, I had to go through seminary, but seminary was only part of it. It was formation. And I kind of want to jump into that because you're taking care of 6 kids now. I mean, these are not, they're like young men. They're teenagers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's crazy. Why did their parents allow you to take them? Did they go through holy hell to the point where they didn't have a place in their home and you're kind of just adopting them?
Well, okay, I'll say this. So my program started, summer program started last year, and during the summertime last year, I did the program out of my house, but they weren't staying with me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people found out about my program in Albany here from word of mouth. And at that point, I didn't need to really advertise the program anymore because people had heard about us. So fast forwarding to this year, I was doing the book club and the bowling team, etc. And COVID happened, so I had to put everything on pause. When the summertime came around, parents were contacting me saying, "You got to do something." And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So at this time, I decided, I said, well, I talked to my wife about it. I said, well, if I'm going to do it this year, they're going to have to live with me because I don't know where they're going, when they're coming back to my house from home. I don't know who they're coming into contact with. Plus, I have a 1-year-old, and I don't, he's susceptible to die, from COVID. So I just, wanted to be careful with that. But having them stay with me was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me and to the children, because I'm able to get.
So where do they stay? I mean, do you have like a big house?
Well, I have 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2,100 square feet. No, not too big, not too small.
Sure.
They sleep on bunk beds. Somebody donated us some bunk beds, so they sleep on the bunk beds.
And that's a great point. How are you paying for all of this? I don't want to get into your finances because I frankly don't care, but this stuff costs money.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. So at the beginning of the program, I was doing a lot of it out of my pocket. I was trying my hardest, to make everything as cheap as possible for the parents to send their children. Even though I was, being cheap, with myself, my wife would fuss at me about my prices and things like that. But of course, I just wanted to work with the children, and I really didn't want.
So let's break that down. You say
yes,
work with children. So the parents pay you a certain amount of money,
mm-hmm.
and you literally give them a vocational tech education.
Right. Yes, sir. And that's what was happening. But of course, I had a lot of parents. We were in a very high poverty area, so a lot of them still weren't able to pay the full price. And I just like, whatever you have, that's cool, because I didn't want to send the kids home or anything like that. And my wife would fuss, but I always tell her, if as long as you're giving, I don't really worry about how my bills are going to be paid or things like that. As long as you keep giving, God will give it back to you, and you can't beat them giving. So I just give as much as I can because I know I'm going to get back. So I don't mind, doing things like that because I'm going to get it back eventually. So fast forward to this past summer, we were posting on Twitter. Somebody told me, you need to start posting the things you're doing on Twitter. I'm like, okay, whatever. I never got on Twitter like that. I had an account, but I just, whatever. I was always on Facebook. And so I started posting on Twitter. And one day, I don't know who it was, somebody retweeted, and like it started making rounds on Twitter like crazy. And so now I got like 18,000 followers in like a month or two, because people are loving the work that we're doing. And so we've been invited to the White House. So many people, celebrities, et cetera, have reached out to us, because they saw our work on Twitter. And so now it's to a point where we've been receiving, so many people to sponsor the children that I'm able to take them for free now. Also, now I'm able to take the kids that really couldn't afford it, that really needed it. I can take them and don't have to charge their parents anything. So the kids are here for free. And everything's taken care of, because people believe in the program. So I told my wife, it finally paid off. I was always doing it out of my pocket. We're using our money to buy food. I'd call my mom and say, hey, can you cook for the boys today? Or can I call my grandma? Can you help me feed the kids today?
So tell me about the program, because I'm kind of interested. I'm sure you are one man. You're obviously going to be training these young men to hopefully give back because they are receiving from you. But people who are watching might think, gosh, I could do this at home too. I mean, maybe it's not going to grow like this, because the one thing that I paid attention to, actually, someone actually sent me your link on Twitter because they said, you really need to get to know this guy and talk about him and cook for their family. I'm like, how many invitations do I get to cook for people in their homes? I mean, like endless amounts. But this is one that I thought this might work because you are a chef. And I have a theology of food that I think a lot of people don't fully understand. But the one thing that came about was a picture of you dressing up these young men and teaching them how to tie a tie. And these young men look like gentlemen, but you're also teaching them a few other things. So what's with the suits? What's the program look like? What do you do day one, and when do they graduate?
Yes, sir. So the suits are like, I'll say they're like rite of passage in the program. A lot of them never wore a suit before, and a lot of young men doesn't know how it feels to wear a suit. It gives you a different feeling, gives you a different walk, it gives you a different confidence. And so for me, giving them their first suits, that's one of my favorite things to do. And my group that I have now, they just did their first suits. I'm not sure if you saw the pictures, but they just did their first suits Sunday, and we just did our commercial video for our school. But with the suits, that's one of my favorite things to do, because I have a story about wearing a suit when I was in 6th grade.
Tell me about it.
All through elementary school, every picture day, I always wore a suit. Every picture day, and people knew me for that. And so I got to middle school, and this is a new group of kids. People don't know me and things like that. I got to middle school and it was picture day. So of course I wore a suit. And I got to school that day and people picked on me from the beginning to the end of the day. And I never forget it. And so I got, in the car, I cried. I was super upset. And that's like the only yearbook I have from middle school. Actually, that's the only one I have with me in my shirt and tie. And I didn't even wear my jacket because I was just like, maybe that'll alleviate some of it. But it was horrible. I got picked on the whole day. I never wanted to wear a suit again. I got to high school and I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear a suit. And I started bringing a briefcase to school. I put all of my work in a briefcase every day. And so with me being myself, of course, people, were like, what you got in a suit for? People picked or whatever, but they got used to it after a while. So with that being said, I started getting all the attention, from all the girls. I started getting attention from all the teachers, et cetera, because I looked different. I never had a book bag. I always had a briefcase. I wore my long, overcoats, when it was cold, et cetera, shirt and tie. And I was being myself. And so I got voted best student, most likely to be famous. I was able to go speak at different schools because I was doing a lot.
So what's the lesson here? Tell me about the lesson.
Yes, sir. So the lesson is for the students, my boys, you got to be yourself. And I always tell them a lot. They're always on the fact of what people think. That's one of their biggest things that they battle with is what people think. Like the only reason they want nicer cars, like, the fancy cars and the shoes and the shirts and all of that stuff is because of what people think. I'm just like, if you simply be yourself, and do what you want to do or whatever, and be who you are, you will still get, attention. I'm like, because no matter how nice you may dress in society's eyes, or no matter what you may wear, how much your shoes may cost, somebody's still going to have something to say. So why not just go and do what it is that you want to do and be yourself? The lesson is be yourself. And
what's your training for you to do all of this? I mean, you obviously were raised well. Your grandmother probably whooped your backside a couple times, and your mom did too. Was your dad part of the picture?
Well, my biological dad, I don't have any, ill feelings towards him. I mean, he's not like the biggest father figure, whatever, but I've always been able to call him, go see him every now and then, et cetera. So, I mean, he wasn't like, in my life, but I didn't, he wasn't now in my life either. He was just, here and there, kind of like a buddy. But my stepdads, I had two stepdads. My mom got married. The first time, he's the one that taught me all the skilled trades that I know. He was a great father. My mom would tell you he was a great father, bad husband. But he taught me everything that I knew. He taught me how to build sheds with wood and gardening, etc. I learned all of that growing up. And now my stepdad that I have now, he's awesome in both aspects. He's not a handyman. He's an officer in Atlanta in DeKalb County. But he's very good, in giving advice. He's a good father as well.
All right. Because it sounds to me like you're really trying to, again, give these guys formation, not just giving them a life skill, but almost counseling them in who they are. I kind of want to get a little bit of your philosophy, because one of the things that Dr. King mentioned is to not judge a person by their color, but by their character and their content of who they are, really. Right. In today's world, everyone is a racist if you disagree with somebody. I think that you and I would agree politically, maybe not the same politics, but at least approaching it this way. I mean, me being a man of color, but in a different way than you. But what's your teaching? What are you teaching these young men about their color as it relates to their character and just the content of who they are in a world that is incredibly divided?
Right. Well, for the most part, I call myself old school. So I try to make sure I implement all the things from, I say, back then. Because the statistics for family and divorce and marriage and wealth, et cetera, were all better for the Black community when we were a unit, when everybody worked together, when there was a village, and everybody was able to help out with the children. And now it's this new age of independency where nobody wants to, help each other with their children. Nobody wants men anymore. Nobody wants to be with a woman anymore. And all of our statistics are completely obliterated. And this new age of whatever we have going on is completely horrible for our children. They can't read. They're committing all sorts of crimes. They're killing each other, etc. So my thing, for them and telling them about their color is you can go and do what it is that you seek out to do, because people will tell you that, oh, well, the white man's holding you down, or we'll use every excuse in the world not to take accountability. And I'm telling them, no, you're going to take accountability. You can be a Black man and be successful in America. There are people to prove it. But as long as you allow people to tell you that somebody's holding you down and you can't go do anything because of this person or that person. You will never be able to do anything as long as you can never take accountability and blame yourself for any of your actions. Then you will never succeed.
You're
So
talking about
that's the
victimhood.
biggest thing.
I
Exactly.
mean, do you think that there is a victimhood happening for Black people?
I do, and of course I get a lot of flack, from my own community because of some of the things I may say they may disagree with. Like today, I've been arguing with a few people on Facebook about the guy that was shot in Philadelphia, and I was saying that the guy charged the police with a knife, but none of their scenarios ever include what we could have done differently to prevent the situation from happening. And I'm just like, this is my problem. I'm like, but then they'll say, oh, you're saying these things so white people can agree with you. No, I'm saying these things because that is the problem. Why would you go tell your child to go charge somebody with the knife?
So what do you tell your boys? Because I know that they're getting mixed signals right now. And
absolutely,
living in your home, you're creating a little bit, I don't want to call it a bubble or a cocoon, but you're giving them a safe place that they're not getting it. I mean, like some of these boys could probably just be out on the street, especially if they're in a poor area.
Stories. Yeah, I can give you some of their stories.
And tell me, what do you tell them?
Yeah, so like we've been pulled over by the police like many times. And every time we get pulled over, it's because I was doing something maybe like speeding or like when I bought a truck, I had I didn't have my tag on the back. So of course I knew eventually I was gonna get pulled over. But every time I got pulled over, it's for something that I was doing. And I tell people, if you're really scared of police, you wouldn't run red lights, you'd not run stop signs, you'd follow all the rules of the road, you wouldn't commit crime because you don't want to come into contact with the police. So we have a full protocol when we get pulled over. Your hands go on your laps, we let all the windows down, and if it's nighttime, we turn the lights on in the car. I have a weapon. As soon as the officer even gets to the car, license registration, sir, I have a weapon in the car. Would you like to take the weapon for the remainder of the traffic stop? And then after that, why do you know why I pulled you over? Yes, I know exactly why you pulled me over. I'm not going to lie about it. I was speeding. I was going this fast or whatever. And, call it a day. And so state troopers, they never give warnings. And so we've gotten warnings from state troopers and everything simply because, we just simply abide by the, what we're supposed to do when we get pulled over. And it's simple. I've never had a bad interaction with police, and people I know will say that every interaction they've ever had with police is bad their whole life. I'm just like,
well, look, I've gotten to talk, if I get pulled over, hands on the wheel, I mean, I've gotten to talk too. So what do you tell these boys? I mean, tell me, what's the toughest message for them to learn from you?
From me, I would definitely say is the being yourself talk and anger management. And I wouldn't say it's any of this mainstream stuff that they have going on, because I believe anger management could fix a lot of our issues, especially with us not knowing how to de-escalate situations. Like just the other day, I was at Dunkin' Donuts and this guy was like beating up his girlfriend outside because they just got into a disagreement. Anger management is a big portion of the program because you have to learn how to de-escalate. That will keep you out of situations. And being yourself. I could tell them all day, you don't have to go buy fancy clothes. You don't have to go, drive fancy cars to try to get girls, etc. But in the age of social media and in the age of, seeing people get more likes than you on a picture and all of that. And they kind of almost like fiend for that type of attention. So I have to try to remove that, and take their phones, etc. I'm like, no, there is a life that you have outside of social media. You don't have to go buy nice clothes to just get likes on Instagram. That's not making you any money. You're spending money trying to get people to like you.
Yeah. So real quick, what's going to happen next for you and the X for Boys program, school? What do you call it? Family?
Yes, sir. So it's the program right now, but we're in the process of opening a boarding school for our boys. We're going to open the Life Preparatory School for boys here in Albany, Georgia. This will be the middle school campus here, and our high school campus, we plan on it being in Buena Vista, Georgia, which is about 45 minutes away from where we are. But this school will be our middle school campus. We'll be teaching all the skill trades, STEM, as well as all of their academics that they will need to know, plus the curriculum of being a man. That's what I call it. So we definitely want to make sure that we're teaching our children and giving them different outlets, especially with different sports. A lot of Black children only feel like they can only go do football and basketball. No, we're going to teach them lacrosse and cricket and gaming, all of this stuff to get them into different areas, table tennis, you name it, different sports you have to get into.
Love it.
Yes, sir. So everything that we're going to try to get at the school, even aviation, driving boats, forklift driving, welding, carpentry, painting,
Sure.
toiletries, you name it. I want them to get into every little area and get certified in these areas as well. So that's what I want to happen with our school, because our boys could definitely benefit from the skill trades, as well as being in law enforcement and being judges and being lawyers, etc. We need those things.
How do people partner with you? I mean, where do they find you, and how do they, I mean, obviously you kind of blew up because of social media, and hopefully my listeners will be able to say, you know what, I believe in what King is doing here. Let's show him some love, and let's make sure that we encourage him, if anything, with prayers, with positivity.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, you can follow us on social media. All of my tags are New Emerging King. And the X for Boys has a Facebook page. You can just type in the X for Boys. And you can also go to our website. If that's too much, our website is thexforboys.org. And you can go there and click on all of our social media tags. It will lead you directly to the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on thexforboys.org. Plus, you can purchase some of our merchandise if you like, as well as send messages to me and or the boys.
That's awesome. Now, just before I close, first of all, this has been fantastic. Thank you for sharing your story with me. You don't know me, I don't know you, but I like you very much, and I certainly appreciate everything you're doing. But what can I, as a Catholic priest, again, you don't know anything about me, but what can I, as a Catholic priest, do for you?
The first thing that I always ask people is, what can they teach the children? That's my biggest thing. Anytime somebody asks, how can they help? What can they do? What can you teach the boys? So that's my biggest thing. What can you teach the children?
That's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. My special guest is King Randall, the X for Boys. You can find him at the Emerging King, right? The New Emerging
King. Yeah, New Emerging King. Yes,
New
sir.
Emerging King. And when I come back, I'm going to give you my carry-out order. What did I learn from this deep dish discussion? We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to Shoot the Shiitake with me, Father Leo, for my carry-out order after talking to the Emerging King, King Randall. The organization, again, is called the xforboys.org. And a few things that I learned is, first of all, how impressed I am with his experience and how he turned his situation into something that's very positive for other people. And ultimately what he's doing is he's providing something called formation. You've heard me talk about this many times before, and that's the one thing that we're missing. We can get as much education as we want, but if we don't know how to apply it to our life, then it's just information. But information needs to have formation. Formation is, how do we integrate these things in our lives to make us better human beings? And you can see his spirituality, his Christian ethic is what makes him so awesome, so patient, and such a loving dad and a big brother to so many of these young men. And one of the great things that I learned is his call for making sure that we take personal responsibility for our actions, which is a lot of things that, I mean, that's just not happening. We're always blaming somebody else, and we cancel each other just because they might have offended me. But we have to ask ourselves, what did I do to offend that person? Because let's admit, we all have to learn how to be peacemakers, and it really begins when we see ourselves as peacemakers and not as professional agitators, nor as peaceful protesters, which are hardly even peaceful at all. How we got into politics is because racism has just become literally a political thing. And it was great to hear a man who didn't care about the color of his skin, and he didn't care what anyone else thought about him. He cared about the character and the content in his life, and he's making a huge difference. So many other young boys who are just looking for a figure like him in their life. And so if you want to support them, make sure you go to thexforboys.org and follow King Randall on the New Emerging King on social media. And I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. And if you did and want to support the work that we do, just make sure you visit us at platinggrace.com, click on Academy, join one of the tiered memberships. A small monthly donation each month supports the work that we do, plus gives you total access to a lot of special content and premium perks and just being part of an online community. Because as you hear with King Randall, these boys are looking for community, and so are you. So make sure you join us at our Plating Grace Academy. I want to thank my special guest one more time, King Randall. You can find more about it at thexforboys.org. And between now and the next time we shoot the shiitake, stay hungry.